So somehow it is going to have a knock-on effect. And by reducing these speed limits carte blanche across all built-up areas, it is going to affect the time and therefore the money. And therefore, people are going to see just little further increases, prices nudging their way upwards just a bit again. And it hurts everybody.
Now, from today, motorists in Wales will have to observe a new speed limit. The default speed limit in built-up areas has been reduced from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. Now, Welsh ministers say the move will save lives lost to road accidents and reduce noise pollution, but critics, including local communities and some politicians, say that it's going to just punish motorists. So what does it actually mean for drivers? Welcome, Amanda Stretton, motoring journalist and broadcaster and former racing driver. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
As a former racing driver, I can imagine driving at 20 must be hell on earth.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do understand why it's been brought in. And I don't think there's any denying that we need to make our roads safer for all road users. And that includes cyclists and pedestrians. But I do think the way the Welsh Government have gone about implementing this, the statements they've made and the way they have talked down to the motorist and about the motorist has really got everybody's backs up. And I think this is a sort of 101 lesson in how to not implement a new policy.
Why so? Why do you think?
Well, I first of all think these blanket statements, like the extra second on the journey time, is going to save lives. I mean, we know that reducing the speed in built-up areas does definitely increase your risk of survival should you be hit by a car. There's no question about that. But I think, saying it is therefore going to save X many lives, I do think people sort of they're a little bit skeptical. We've had governments and politicians making all of these statements about by making these decisions, X is going to happen. And of course, over the fullness of time, we found out a big bus is springing to mind on that one. But over the fullness of time, we've as consumers and as the general public, we've learnt that this isn't always the case as well. I think the other thing is the cost and time implication. Motorists are under huge amounts of pressure, regardless of the type of car you drive, whether it's internal combustion or electric. Costs are just going up and up and up, and there seems to be very little let up to the motorist. And it's really important to emphasize it's not just motorists. Every single one of us, whether you have never driven a car in your life, you rely on goods and services being delivered to you by road. So somehow it is going to have a knock-on effect. And by reducing these speed limits carte blanche across all built-up areas, it is going to affect the time and therefore the money. And therefore, people are going to see just little further increases, prices nudging their way upwards just a bit again. And it hurts everybody. And I think it's all well and good saying it's encouraging people into alternative forms of transport. In Wales in particular, the majority of Wales is pretty rural. So what are people supposed to do? Bring a bicycle with them and then park their car outside a town and then get into a bike? It's just not practical. Motorists need sensible and cost-effective alternatives if they are going to be beaten with a stick rather than incentivized with a carrot.
I've often wondered, Amanda, I was telling Kate McCann earlier on her show with Anna Bolton that I have had to do a couple of those speed awareness courses, quite some time apart. I think I did them 7 years apart. And again, I think I was about 3 miles over the speed limit or 4 miles over a 30 mile an hour speed limit. And I understand that we need to be cautious, and a lot of us sort of forget about it, get carried away, particularly, whatever we're being distracted by. And I think it's important that, we keep to the speed limit. But one of the main takeaways I got from these courses was appropriate speed. It was drummed into me in that session that even if the speed limit says that it's 40, for example, and the road is wet and it's dark, perhaps you need to reduce your speed for safety. Even if it's 30, but there are a lot of parked cars and the crowded pavement, perhaps again you need to reduce your speed to drive at the appropriate speed. but it doesn't seem to work the other way round. The speed limit of 20 in the middle of the night, if no one's there, or if you, I've noticed it driving into work here at London Bridge. I have to cross Blackfriars Bridge. 2 lanes of traffic either side. It's barriered, so there's no one going to be crossing the road, and yet everybody has to crawl across it at 20 miles an hour. Is there no feasible way that we can drive at appropriate speeds at appropriate times? There's no reason to drive at 20 miles an hour in the middle of the night.
And I think this is exactly one of the criticisms that has been levied against the Welsh government who have brought this in, because it is this carpet ban. It isn't saying that in certain areas where there are schools, care homes, hospitals, which would make a lot more sense. And as you say, motorists are being all tarnished with the same brush as being criminals, murderers, whatever it may be. And therefore all motorists need to reduce their speed, regardless of the conditions. You're right. I think this is why this is a 101 lesson in how not to do it, because all it is doing is getting people's backs up. One of the other arguments for it was this idea that it's going to save fuel. Again, it's a real contentious one, and doesn't really stick when you actually drill down into it, because what happens is it's all well and good if you drive very steadily at 20 miles an hour, but 20 is slow, and it is quite hard for people to maintain that if they're also keeping their eyes on the road. So what you then tend to get is a lot more stop start on the accelerator, which actually in turn can use much more fuel or energy if you're in an electric car. So again, all the arguments don't really wash, and it is about, as you say, it's about appropriate speed and trusting motorists. And I think if people fully understood that outside schools or hospitals or whatever, they need to moderate their speed, and there was clear signage indicating this. Isn't always the case. I know there are signs, but it's not always very obvious to motorists, particularly if you're in an unfamiliar area. Then it would make a lot more sense. And also, if you suddenly see a 20, you know what you're coming into. Mm-hmm. When it's carte blanche and a blanket ban like this, it just gets people's backs up.
But Amanda, though, isn't the problem that unfortunately accidents don't just happen in front of schools or public buildings or hospitals? They can happen anywhere. And perhaps the idea that you're always confused and going, hang on, is this 20 or is this 30? I'm not quite sure. You're looking out for speed signs, or you're looking down at road markings, looking down your speedometer. That's too many distractions. And if you know that actually, if you can see a road of houses and you're in a built-up area, it's going to be 20 unless it says otherwise, then it actually simplifies everything. And as we know, and we can't really dispute this, that if you hit someone at 20, they've got more chances of survival than if you hit them at 30.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's about 5 times improvement in your outlook if you reduce the speed to 20 miles an hour. And I totally agree. And actually, for what it's worth, I actually am in favour of the 20 mile an hour speed limit. I just don't think the way they have done it and the way they're selling it is the right way. I think it needs to be done with a lot more consultation. You need to listen to the people who are in the constituency and actually listen to what they're saying. It's not always feasible. People have opinions. There are going to be knock-on effects. And when we certainly look at the cost of some of the effects of rolling this out, it can be quite eye-watering. And when other services are being squeezed consistently, it sort of sticks in people's mouths that yet again, it feels like the motorist who is coming out worst. I think in principle, as you say, it does reduce distraction. I just don't think this is necessarily the way to do it or the way to sell it.
Amanda, do you think that we're going to see other areas of the UK following suit? I mean, here in London, I have to say now, as a motorbike driver in London, I'm assuming most roads are 20. I think there's certain boroughs where 20 is the majority of the roads. Are we going to see this kind of be rolled out nationwide?
Yes, I think is the answer to that. It's already been rolled out in a number of towns and cities. Where I live here in Oxfordshire, it's now pretty much, I think it's rolled out everywhere now, actually. So yes, I think it's just a matter of time. Wales is grabbing the headlines because it is this blanket ban. It's the first country in the United Kingdom to have implemented this new rule. I think there's 2 or 3% of the roads, because there are local councils that have actually said no for whatever reasons. but yeah, so I think it is just going to happen. Uh, we know that there is an awful lot of pressure. There's an awful lot of research. There's a lot of safety bodies. There are a lot of people calling. Spain has already done it quite successfully. There are other European cities that have done it. I think it is just a matter of time.